Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And glad to have in the studios with us live this morning, Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Hornell Police Sergeant Investigator Tom Aini. I want to thank you both for coming in.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
So, recent heroin fentanyl arrest, suspects returning from, everybody guessed it, 390. What can you tell us about that? I know it's a court case, and you got to be careful what you say. But what can you tell us about that?
The suspects were returning from what we believe the city of Rochester, and they were bringing heroin into the city of Hornell.
Right. It was a substantial amount, and it was all earmarked for distribution in the Hornell area. So we were glad to intercept it and get it out the street before that happened.
How can you tell that?
It's prepackaged individually for street sale in dosages. In this particular substance, it tested not only positive for heroin, but it also tested positive for fentanyl.
And how long does it take to get the test results back on something like that?
We can field test something immediately with test kits that we do have. However, we do send it on to the New York State Police Crime Lab in Wlea, where they do further testing and give us a quantitative and qualitative report.
The testing is quite unique, as that we have we bought a hood about a year ago that we have at the police department for the safety because of the fentanyl that we're finding in these substances. So when the investigator does his field testing, it's done under a hooded device which vents it out.
I spoke with Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker a few weeks ago, and he talked about the dangers of fentanyl. As everyone knows, just from watching TV shows, all you have to do is touch that powder, and you can have heart problems, right? Not right away, but very quickly.
You can go into what's called a respiratory apnea, and this is a transdermal substance that can be absorbed through the skin.
Talking to Hornell Police Sergeant Tom Aini and Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray. Before we move on, and kind of a dumb question here, but I noticed in the press release that you put out about the recent heroin arrest, it said baggies of heroin. Does that mean it's a little bit smaller, or what is that? There was a lot of baggies, but what does that mean?
Those are baggies that are commonly used in street sales of heroin or other drugs, such as cocaine.
They're just real small baggies that have a dosage that is generally used for possibly one usage of heroin.
Now, recently it came out in the news that there was bad doses of marijuana being sold in the Catskills area. It was 2 or 3 counties there, and that it was marijuana with fentanyl in it. That's something have we seen any of that around here?
I haven't seen any, no. And I haven't heard of anyone seeing any, but that is not good.
Yeah, you never know what you get when you're talking about marijuana, because people that are involved in marijuana, we find they're involved in other drugs. So if there's a mixture of it, that doesn't surprise me.
Legalizing marijuana, that brings us to that topic. What are our thoughts there?
I'm not a supporter of it. I think that is opening a dangerous door for everybody, especially with the fact that there's other dangerous drugs out there, such as fentanyl and other chemicals that get imported into the United States, along with the bath salts arena of drugs.
Talking to Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Police Sergeant Investigator Tom Aini live on the Newsmaker show this morning. Search warrant recently what was that over the weekend for marijuana? It's still under investigation. What can you tell us there?
Hornell Police were called to a residence in the city of Hornell for what appeared to be a possible drug overdose. And in plain view, when the police and ambulance personnel got there, we did observe drug paraphernalia as well as other drugs associated with cocaine and heroin and marijuana.
And it's like with a lot of cases we see, you'll see marijuana there with the harder drugs being sold in the same manner as the other drugs. That's a very concerning fact, I think, for us. And, you know, I know people like to use the term when we're talking about the legalization of marijuana that it's recreational, and that just floors me because people don't, for a parent to think that a nice recreation for their child would be to smoke marijuana is completely off base. I think that it's trying to sell it, the positivity of it somehow, which I think is absolutely wrong.
Chief Miller, what do you make of the whole idea that marijuana just causes people to be passive and legalizing it shouldn't be any kind of problem?
Well, I'm sure that there's some people that could probably smoke marijuana and maybe it wouldn't do anything to them. I'm not against the legalization of marijuana for any type of medical purpose, but again, if you get into the recreational side of it, I just think it's such a negative on society. I don't think there's a positive aspect to be had for it.
We're talking with Hornell Police. Now, you're trained in CPR and Narcan treatment and also assist in ambulance calls. Wondering, do you find yourselves doing a lot in Hornell, and do you ever get called out to, let's say, the sheriff's department or state police weren't able to make it as quickly because they're tied up in, I don't know, Canisteo, Arkport, something like that? Do you find yourselves going outside your regular jurisdiction?
We will at times, although we do stay primarily in the city of Hornell, but at times when there's an emergency and we get a request from 911 or the other agency, we will send an officer or officers to assist us.
The Narcan thing, I've heard from, I think it was Sheriff Jim Allard who said that sometimes these drug users will keep Narcan around just in case because they want to get a specific high from certain drugs. I think it's fentanyl. And the closer you come to death, the more exciting the high is. So they have cans of Narcan around. What do you say to somebody? What do you say to somebody in that situation who's taking these kind of risks for a high?
They're flirting with disaster. And back to the search warrant we just conducted, where we haven't made an arrest, there was Narcan present there. Pharmaceutical Narcan that was for sale from a pharmacy.
Not to put you into the legislative process, the lawmaker situation, but do you think that, and this question is for either Police Chief Murray or Investigator Aini, do you think maybe it should be illegal for the general public to have Narcan and it should only be available to, those working in law enforcement or, fire and rescue or emergency rooms? Do you think it causes more problems for the general public to have Narcan out there?
That's a loaded question there. For anything that's going to preserve somebody's life, I think it's a good thing. It just, for my attitude and for what I do in the city of Hornell, it seems counterproductive to me. But if there is some good, I think it should be available to the public.
The last time that Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker was on, he talked about the Good Samaritan laws, and that reminded me how the Hornell Police Department, I guess you could say, has that Good Samaritan policy, where if you have someone, if you're talking to someone in the public and you say, if you have a member of your family who's having heroin problems or whatever the drug may be, if you stop in and talk to us, we're not necessarily going to initiate an arrest, but we could get somebody to a treatment program.
Yes, that's always been our policy, is to try to help individuals that are in need from a drug addiction. And we will try to get them to the hospital and get them some help to deal with their problems.
And I've said over the years, and it's still a policy of our department, if anyone needs to get for drug help, if they come to the police department and say, hey, I want help, I've got a commitment from the local Loyola Foundation that they will get anybody in that when I make that phone call. So if there is somebody out there that needs help, wants to get off from the substance, come to the police department. No, you won't be arrested. You'll be brought into a treatment, and that's the way we handle that.
Going to take a quick break. It's Brian O'Neill on Newsmaker talking with Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Police Sergeant Tom Aini. We're going to take a quick break, check the forecast. We'll be back. Stay with us.
The Ryan Agencies, your local, independent insurance agencies. At the Ryan Agency, they do the shopping, wading through dozens of top insurance companies to find you the best price. It's like having your own personal insurance shopper. Save smart. Contact the Ryan Agencies today, where they do the shopping for you.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
Checking in now with meteorologist Gary Best, who says it's going to be pretty rainy over the weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be wet at times as we go into the weekend, Brian. It looks like a lot of clouds as well, and not going to really break this pattern until early next week. This morning sunrise was at 6:23. It'll set at 7:55 tonight. We're looking at a lot of clouds during today, with occasional sun, though, for a while, and then a chance of late afternoon showers. High temperatures getting up into the 70s. So overall, not too bad today. But tonight, mostly cloudy with a few showers, down between 55 and 60. And Friday, kind of wet and breezy, scattered showers and thunderstorms around. Temperature is well up in the 60s. Then we settle into some occasional rain on Friday night, cooler, 45 to 50, and 60s on Saturday, cloudy and breezy. Periods of rain by Easter Sunday. We'll see some partial sun with just a few showers by then, Brian.
Thank you, Gary Best, who's filling in for Rob Carolyn. I'm Brian O'Neill on Newsmaker today, live with Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Police Sergeant Investigator Tom Aini. We were talking a little bit in the break about the whole body cam issue. What's the status of that for Hornell Police?
We do not have body cams for our officers, and I would love to have them, and it's something that in the future I hope to see. But right now it's a financial issue, and primarily not necessarily for the cameras themselves, but the cost of retaining the data or putting the data on a cloud is more than I can budget at this.
Storing the video.
Yes.
Oh, sure. How do you feel about the whole body cam issue?
I think it's a great idea. Like I say, when my officers, they do a fantastic job. They're out there all the time, but it would be good for when there's allegations against my officers, if we were able to get the footage to see what a wonderful job that they are doing, and I'm sure that they are. But without that footage, of course, you can get false allegations out there of their conduct.
Now, you're a school resource officer these days at the Hornell school system is Pete McDaniels. How's he liking that position?
I just talked to him yesterday. He's loving it. He says that he's got an itch there. My conversations with the school officials is that he's doing a remarkable job, and they really appreciate the job that he's doing. He's getting along well with the kids, and we appreciate Pete's work in the school.
Tom Aini, Investigator Aini, that was something we did not have back in the 1980s. What do you think of the whole school resource officer position? Is that something that, I don't want to say necessarily keep crime down, but I'm sure that it must.
Yeah, it gives the police a positive image in the eyes of the youth. And I do believe that it makes a difference later on down the road in their lives.
It's the kind of thing that, I just imagine, the ability of our student to say, hey, having a bad day or getting bullied around a little bit. Does it kind of, you hear a lot in the school systems these days about the anti-bullying campaign. I imagine having a school resource officer cuts down on that a lot, because the average bully, sees uniform walking down the hallway, that might scare him off a little bit about picking on the kids.
Yes, and I know the school also has educational programs concerning bullying and being helpful to their other peers in the school.
Now you have had a canine, a police dog there. What's the status of that, Chief Murray?
Unfortunately, our canine dog had to be retired just recently because of an incident with the dog. But on the positive side of that, we are currently looking at the possibility of acquiring a new dog, and hopefully we'll get him up in service before the end of the year.
Where do you get the police dogs? Who handles the training, and which officers are dealing with the police dogs, the canines, these days at the Hornell Police Department?
Officer J.R. Emo, was our dog handler with the previous dog that we had. He did a nice job with his dog, and we were sorry to see that program end. I haven't made a decision yet as far as going forward who our canine handler would be.
And what is the use for canine? Do they ever do, I imagine that from time to time they would get called into one of the schools to check a locker, to sniff lockers, or maybe a drug pullover in a vehicle stoppage. What kind of usage does the canine get?
Yeah, we use the dog a lot for those purposes, the canine purposes. We do locker checks at the high school and other schools. When we do that, we bring in multiple dogs, and the Sheriff's Department has several dogs. The State Police has several dogs. So when we do the locker searches, we generally bring in dogs from those other departments, and we'll continue to do so until we get our new dog and up and running with our new dog. Our new dog is going to be a dog that's not going to be an aggressive dog. We're looking for a dog primarily just for detection of narcotic type drugs.
Do you ever find that the police dogs have helped you out in a chase? Have you ever used a police dog? I don't think there are a lot of chases in Hornell. That's an occasional thing. But have you ever used them to locate a suspect?
Yes, I recall many times back when Mark Mahoney was the canine handler, his dogs, one of the specialties was tracking. And even he was utilized in many occasions outside the city of Hornell looking for lost people.
Okay. Now, we brought up the name J.R. Emo. I see that Officer Ashley Emo was mentioned at a public safety meeting, is leaving for another job out of state. You're going to be looking for another officer?
Yes, we'll be looking for another officer. We were sad to see Ashley leaving. She was a good officer, and she'll be missed. We would like to see another female officer, and right now, talking to civil service, there's not a whole lot of female officers on the list, so we're kind of searching for a female officer, and there's one out there listening. Give us a call. And
does that, tying it in back with the school resource officer, does that help to have a school resource officer in the schools as far as recruiting new officers go?
Yeah, I think that's a real good thing too. The kids in the school do look up to Pete, and Curtis Stanford was the school resource officer before. He did a really nice job, and he still works days and has has his hands in the school system and is up there often. A lot of the kids look at both of those, and before them, Officer Jason Day did a great job for years up at the West School. So
that's got to be a big help and a great influence to have a police officer in the school systems. Do they work with each other? Does it ever happen? I'm trying to think of, I don't know, a drug situation between schools, drug deal. I don't want to say drug dealers in the schools, but students having drug problems in one school or another, or a fight between the students at different schools. Is there strong communication between school resource officers in Hornell, Kennesdale, Greenwood, Arkport Central, etc.?
Yeah, I think we've got a good communication between them. I mean, two of the officers in Kennesdale school system are former Hornell officers, so we've got a really good communication system there.
We've been talking with Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Hornell Sergeant Police Investigator Tom Aini. I want to thank both of you for coming in this morning. And was there anything else I did not bring up that you wanted to?
Not that I can think of, Brian. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us, Brian. We appreciate it.
It's AM 1480 Wlea Hornell. Stay with us. Brian Kilmeade coming up next, and our thanks to the Hornell Police Chief and the investigator for coming in today.